Hello, this is Amos Tarfa. Welcome to a comprehensive conversation about race and ethnicities in America. I want to take time to explain. This is the second episode. I did a first episode where I went into more detail about some of the things going on in America and my concerns about the current movement that is trying to help poor blacks or to help black lives, they say, in America. I want to take time now to clearly differentiate two issues that I hear people talking about, and I think that it would be good to delineate and explain what approach I recommend and why I recommend it. Now, the first thing I want you to remember in this episode is that not all help is good help. Bad help is actually worse than no help. I repeat, not all help is good help. Some help is bad, and bad help is worse than no help. Because with no help, at least you're not getting any help and you're stuck. With bad help, you are told you're getting help, and then you're misled in some of those instances in the wrong direction. Therefore, not only are you getting no help, but you're being pulled back further behind. And that's part of what's going on. So I'll explain some of that as we go on. But I want to differentiate two things. There's the policy route of discussing how to help poor blacks in America, or how to help any group that is, struggling in America, right? Any ethnicity. So there's a policy route, or the discussions from a policy perspective. And then there's the individual responsibility route. What I mean by that is, what can a person do now to get them to a place of being, of flourishing? See, I lean more to discussing issues of individual responsibility. And I'm not saying there's not a place for discussing policy. There are opportunities for that. But keep this in mind, and this is where things get a little messy with American debates. There are people that when they hear that you stand in a certain perspective, right? And I know where I stand on the issue. I've shared a little bit about Thomas Sowell. I've shared a little bit about Walter Williams, and I'll be sharing more about, some of these people. I stand on the side of a lot of what they've written on the issues of the day. However, some people hear that I don't agree with the general narrative, the current social justice movement and all of that, and they automatically think, oh, you just need to educate yourself. If you educate yourself, you would know better. Wait, do you realize that there are a lot of PhDs and people that are well educated with skills in these fields of public policy, of economics, of race and economics, of all of that? And I just only listed, two people, but there are many people who are firm where they stand on these issues, and they have a lot of research down. You see, this is where hypocrisy happens. And I'll just tell you this as just to lighten, help us maybe smile a little bit on how these issues are treated. But sometimes we tell people, when they tell us about race and ethnicities in America, we say, oh, you're not a specialist. You don't have a master's in race and ethnicities. So we need to listen to the experts, they say. Well, first, I'll tell you, be very careful when you talk about listening to the experts. Some of the people who have caused trouble in society today were experts, just so you know. But anyway, so you that's not what I was going to say fully. But what I'm saying is, people look at some of these people and they say, Amos, you don't have a master's in this. Your master's is in medical physics or whatever, and your training is in science and this and that. Well, for one, you don't know what books I'm reading, right? I read a lot of books outside of my specialty. But what's interesting is, somebody would tell you that, hey, you don't have the training. But then you have some athlete out there, or you have some celebrity who doesn't necessarily do a lot of research. How do I know this? I've talked to a lot of these athletes, right? They don't do a lot of research. They're not working on research papers in between their travels from one NBA game to another. But you have these people say something, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that guy has it right. What he said makes sense. Wait, so it makes sense because they know how to throw a spherical object into a netted, into a net. So just because somebody can play basketball, now what they say makes sense. We have to be really careful. We should not give people a free pass just because they have money. They have to provide data and facts for what they're saying. If they don't have data and facts, we shouldn't give them a free pass. And unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes. People have money, and therefore they just talk, and then some people listen to them, or they have followers on Instagram. Here's the deal. You can have 1 billion followers on Instagram, and all you're saying is not true. Just because you have a lot of followers doesn't mean what you're saying is true. We have to be very careful. We have to judge statements on the basis of their merits, on the basis of their data and facts and details, not on the basis of how many followers the person has. That's just something for us to chew on. So anyways, I just think it's hypocritical when we tell people that, oh, you don't have specialty training in this issue, and then they allow others who don't have that training to have a pass. which is interesting because if there's any field where people should have a right to speak about issues, it's issues that involve human beings, right? And I'm speaking, again, I'm not here to give a lecture of the 1800s, 1900s, all of that. There's a lot of stuff we can discuss from that, or even before that. Sometimes when we talk about American history and some things that have happened, we forget that there were issues that were happening before American history had some of those things happen here, but those things were happening all over the world. One example is slavery. That's what we're going to be discussing in our next episode, is this issue of slavery. Because slavery is nothing, slavery had been happening all around the world. It doesn't mean it's right, but I'm just saying it's not something that is peculiar to one nation. But sometimes we want to make it look like it's a one-time thing that happened between these people, and we have to be really careful and look at the facts. We have to look at the big picture. So anyways, we'll be talking about slavery in more detail on the next episode. In this episode, I really just wanted to zoom in on a few things because I want to show you the trajectory. There's like 10 other episodes that we have coming out on different aspects of this discussion. But let me say a few things. As I said already, we can talk about policy, and there's a place for it. But what I'm trying to get at is some of the people we're trying to work with and help, the poor blacks, some people in poor black neighborhoods in America, they're getting older every day. It doesn't make sense to sit there and say, no, let's talk about policy and the system of blah, blah, blah. No. What about that 13-year-old boy who's asking himself, what is the meaning of life, and is life worth living? Everything just seems like I can't get anywhere. I'm saying, no, you can get somewhere. Give us a call. Send me an email. If you are willing, you will be out of poverty. You might not become a billionaire, but you will succeed. You will go far. Send an email. Just say, I feel stuck. Okay? And there's things that I can share with you, and I'll be sharing some of them here. So please, I want people to know that if there are people who are poor and struggling in America, I want to see all the resources of the people that I know in terms of experience and life lessons. Let's pass that on and help people get out of poverty and help people flourish through education as a tool especially. But if they don't want to go further into the college world and so on, there are ways to get around that. We can try and encourage and help you get a mentor to help you go into whatever field you want to go into, whatever job you want to go into. But we also want to encourage you on the other issues of life, not just the jobs, but also on the issues of character. What kind of character are you putting forth? Are you putting forth a character that is solid, and are you being a person of integrity? We want to give you all the tools and encourage you to walk in solid character. My friends, if somebody walks in solid character, gets a job, gets married before they have children, if you do certain things, you will succeed. Those things help. Now, somebody might say, well, I know somebody who wasn't married and had a child and blah, blah, blah. No. We're not going to start talking about this person or that person's specific situation. We're talking about a general principle for life. And if you are a teenager and maybe you already have a child, this is not a condemnation note. That's not what we do in this series or in any of my teachings. My encouragement in any of my teachings is to tell people, you might be at a certain place now, but that doesn't mean you have to stay there. You can turn and move in the direction you need to go. And that's what I'm trying to say. Individual responsibility for what you can do with the resources that are available to you to flourish. Let's get to work and let's help you in any way that we can. So what is interesting is we forget sometimes that when we're having this debate that there's a teenager right there who's growing older every day. We need to give that teenager the tools they need. There's a young person out there who's looking for hope today. Not waiting for some institution, but saying, I need hope today. And we're saying there is hope. You don't have to go with the gangs. You don't have to go with the crowd. There is hope. There is a way to go. Seek out people who are seeking to live lives that make sense and have them mentor you. Let's get mentors for people who feel stuck in America. So, taking personal responsibility, I believe, is one of the ways that will help anyone. But if you want to zoom in on the issues of the day and people talking about black lives and so on, so that would help blacks also. Mentoring the young black boy and the young black girl. Those are routes that will help them to flourish. So this series covers a lot of things, but I wanted to take a minute to explain where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a perspective that I believe is most effective and efficient, which is individuals taking up the tools they have, getting mentoring, getting direction, moving forward, doing what they need to do, and succeeding independent of the system that they're in. I believe that that is one way. And I used to say that a lot. And then I saw that Thomas Sowell has also talked about that. And there's other economists. It's interesting to recognize what can happen when an individual takes certain steps and how that individual is likely to succeed. And sometimes it's interesting. You look at you want to weigh public policy and institutions affecting people versus people doing certain things that they can do within their power. And when people do things within their power, a lot of times they get further ahead than waiting for some institution. I mean, we talk about certain laws and this, that, and the other. If there's any law, if there's anything that is not like that is discriminating, blacks and whites or whatever, of course it should be dealt with. And I really want more of those outlined. If there's anything today in 2021 that is hindering anyone from succeeding, I really want to see it because that's critical. That will be helpful then in trying to make sure that I'm doing my part in making sure those things go away. But when we talk about these things sometimes and we say, oh, there's this problem and that problem that is going to hold people back, but then we don't state what those things are, that's a problem, my friends. Let me actually say one of these things, which we'll be discussing in episode 4 or 5 on policing in America. But when you talk about policing in America too, it's really sad that people sometimes have to wait for some tragedy or some incident to happen before they start talking about what they think towards the police force and their concerns with the police force, this, that, and the other. And we really have to be careful here. What are we doing? What are people doing in society and in communities today to equip young black boys, to equip young black girls, to make sure they learn how to respond and be respectful to law enforcement and authority? If they're not being taught those things now, we have a problem. So then are people just waiting and reacting if there's some incident and then, they're going to react? Or are you going to train up men and women who know how to respond to law enforcement, who learn how to do what they need to do in their world so that they don't meet law enforcement in a bad situation? Can we also have that conversation? Can citizens also work on how they can be better citizens rather than simply looking at police officers and saying you need more reform? Of all the professions in the world, let's see which ones talk a lot about reform as much as the police officers do. I think they talk a lot about reform and are doing the best they can to be better trained. But what are citizens doing in being better trained and better prepared and more respectful to police officers and whatever other situation? As citizens, we have to own up. And I have some notes here. Sorry, I'm just getting my notes back here. But basically, as citizens, we have to make sure that we're doing our part in being responsible and in doing everything we can in our power. And then, of course, encouraging all entities, police, medicine, to keep seeking to do better and grow. And that's something that, of course, they're seeking to do. If there's any department or any institution that does not seek to keep improving, we have a problem. And so, citizens, how about we also encourage one another to learn how to live and walk in truth? We'll be looking more at details about personal responsibility. But the reason why this part of the discussion is important and why we had to take a quick pause from our series to address this is because people need to see where I'm coming from. And I don't think it's just me, but there are many others who agree with this route of empowering individuals to flourish. And as they flourish, they will make an impact. If there's any public discussion on public policy, there's people with PhDs on all sides having those discussions. And we can get into some of those discussions. But what about that 13-year-old boy who says today, I need mentoring, I need direction. Let's go help him. Let's go get him in the right track. Thank you for watching this video. Please consider subscribing to this channel where I'll be talking more about ways to help people flourish. And I'll be doing different book reviews and addressing how we can use education as a tool to get people out of poverty and help people flourish in America. Have a great day. Thank you.